you're having a good day. This is one of my black olive trees, Bucida species. This is a Bucida Spinosa. I also understand that that's also the same thing as a Bucida Molineti, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm not all that sure. Sometimes it depends on what area of the country you're from, or even what country you may live in. More commonly called just a dwarf black olive. Go ahead and share the good news with you first. The good news is it's nice and healthy. A couple months ago, I was ready to kind of throw it out and just chalk it up to, slight hurricane damage, followed up by some cold weather damage. And just out of nowhere, about a week ago, it just greened. I'd say about 2 weeks ago, greened back up. And then just a few days ago, it started getting some really nice blooms. Let's see if we can get a close-up of these blooms. See, all of that is blooming in there. And then just... As a matter of fact, when I went to go get it, it was just absolutely covered in bees. And it's not necessarily bad news. I just feel like it's something I've got to address here sooner or later. It's the lip on this pot. You guys might not be able to see it all that well. But it's got this little leg of a root coming off here. And I don't know why. I pulled this out in July. Let's see if we can get another look. I'll look at the other side of it too. If you kind of envision that root being gone, the stump looks better from this side, but I do think the tree looks better from the other side as far as being balanced and everything. But anyhow, I pulled it out in July and I made a short video, decided not to repot it at that time. I don't know why I didn't decide to go ahead and try to cut that off, but I feel like I could have taken that off, not disturbed the other roots, and then hoped it recovered through the winter. But now at this point, it's been in this pot for over 2 years. You know, it does have some roots coming out of there, but it's been sitting out there since July, and it really just has not, it didn't even put up much of a fight today when I went to go pull it up. It just pulled right up. So I think if I settle it into some better soil, it's going to do a lot better. As I was just gathering it up, I noticed just a few branches kind of overlapping with each other. Let's see, I was actually looking at it from here. The other thing I have considered is taking this branch off, but of course that's the healthiest, fullest branch on here. Should allow a lot of the energy to go to the rest of the tree. It is in the position where that could have become the leader or this could have become the leader, but you can see that this one is kind of growing up some more. And this big pad right here, I feel like if it was missing, this pad would gain a little more energy. And I may just go ahead and do that because that's also that would also make me feel a little bit braver about taking off that one root there. And the other reason I'm doing it is because these two branches here are really coming out of the same spot, creating a little bit of a bulge. Has not been healing that scar, that chop scar from the top all that well the way it was. And I'm going to go ahead and take the knob cutters up here. Alright, let's see what that looks like now. This is one of the only branches that doesn't have blooms on it. And of course it was underneath that heaviest branch, if you will. Now suddenly it's making that one look out of place too. Let's see what it looks like from the other side. And I think I'll take that one off too. That should be a considerable amount of foliage taken off of there. Does give it some movement, and that will make me feel a little bit better about taking that root off, but I do want to get it out of this You know, again, not really pot, but I want to get it out of this container and see just how many roots are coming off of that. Alright, I got a decent little root ball up with it. And just like I thought, there are plenty of roots coming from that thing, but at this point I just don't think I can leave it. So I'm going to take it off. Not a bad root spread. That was the idea of having it in a pot like that. I was going to get it in one of my bulb pans. I'm thinking I might have a good sized rectangular pot for it. Just to accommodate those roots. I think this is going to be too small, way too small. Alright, I decided on this old pot that I had here. Had my root over rock Patricia in here for a long time. It's a little bit wider than those plastic training pots, and the other two rectangular training pots that I had were just way too big for it. The tree would have been swimming in there. I didn't want it in anything all that big. The trunk is not large enough to really even call for that. I'm going to have to prune the roots just a little bit. These twisting roots, and one of them comes over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep the substrate right up to the bottom of the corkscrew there. Almost looks like a snake coiling up. And I'm going to try to keep this soil level right there. I pulled out all the roots and some of the organic material that had just kind of made its way into this soil. And I'm going to top it off with some better stuff. And it looks a lot different, for sure. Seems as if that should be able to take over and take the lead there. Now that it doesn't have the, where was that root at? That root was right here. Now it doesn't have that anymore. Looks a little more compact. I think eventually it'll look better. I think it's a good shape. I'll put it in the shade for a week or two. Alright, so I just got done with the spiny black olive there, or the dwarf black olive. This is a black olive Shady lady. These are not related to Olea at all, or Bucida. Now that's one side. Let's take a look at the other. I have this one also. It's kind of in my repotting tub here, if you will. And I did that just because I also have this one sitting on the ground. It's got plenty of ants in it. So I'm trying to, you know, just keep those from escaping all over my room here and everything. So I have it on the ground so that it can get its escape routes. Doesn't have many right now. What happened was in the hurricane, it got kind of torn halfway up out of the ground. It was just kind of, you know, it was one of the things that it worked. It kept it from getting blown over. But then it also kind of sat right there with all the foliage kind of as a parachute for a little while. A few days after that storm, it actually looked like all the leaves were burnt. Then it kind of sat bare all the way through, even our little cold snap in December. I'd get a leaf here and there. But it recovered well this spring. It recovered a little bit earlier. I don't remember seeing the blooms, but I don't think the blooms are quite as obvious on this one as they are on the Spinosa. In the past with this tree, what I was doing is even between videos or major prunings, I was coming in and cutting off. You can see here where it'll just get these sprouts out of the top. I was coming in and cutting all those off, and I was trying to make it kind of basically as wide as possible. And then just without really realizing it, and there's some trees, if you try to train it that way, they'd never get this wide. I didn't realize how well these branches would hold, and it was just getting just ridiculously wide, and I kind of even thought like it was getting out of proportion with how thick the trunk is and everything. So since it had a rough winter, and I've just been actually, I haven't taken a pair of clippers to it at all. Now it's got, you know, one main branch kind of coming off this way and another one coming off this way. Both of these new kind of like leaders, if you will, are coming off of the one to my left here. So what I think I'm going to do is probably try to shorten this one down just a little bit and make it more of a last branch before it goes up to new leaders. Kind of, I don't know, it's unfortunate how thick it is compared to how thin this branch is here, which would be the first branch. And I've always been very careful to try to leave that just in the interest of trying to create any kind of taper at all possible. But perhaps when I come in and clean this up a little and it gets a little more sunlight, I mean, you know, if you go through the original pictures of what I got it, you know, I got it in, I think March of 2019, and it was just a little wisp of a tree. And this thing, you know, it had a couple little branches up here and this little thing here. I was going to keep it as just a flat top where you'd start it out. You might not mind a little bit of inverse taper just where the crown builds. Going to change my mind just a little bit on that. I'm going to make that a branch now. Definitely a learning experience with this guy. I'll show you what the crown looks like now and how wide it is there. And what I'm going to do, even down here on the smaller one here, you can see that as they come out in very ornate patterns in that it kind of forks off, almost looks like a flow chart, like, you know, if a scientist was draw a flow chart. But then even then, this one has kind of two sub branches coming off of it, and part of the flow chart always winds up coming back into the other branches and covering it up, or just, you know, kind of intertwining. You don't really want that. So I'm going to take out all of that I can see first, and then generally speaking, after I do that, I usually you can start kind of just noticing some spots that may be just way too long. Still may shorten that one up. I'm going to come back and just take a look at that in a minute. Because it's so flat, you guys probably don't see everything I'm looking at here. Now, a lot of this is intertwining and everything, but this is also where I've decided I was going to shorten it up quite a bit. So before I even look and see what's intertwining, I'm going to take out. Now with that, I definitely got to balance this side out a little. Alright, so I took a little pause for a closer look, and I did kind of figure out this branch is coming around, curving around. A lot of these, just want to get some ends off just to get some, spur some new growth. Then I was looking, once I take this out, I think this one's out here way too long. It also is starting to lead me to believe that I should take out one of these leaders. This one travels a bit, comes up that way. This one comes over here. I say 2 new leaders just where it has this growth. And so as I was looking at it there, I was thinking that I didn't really want the 2 leaders. I do want it to kind of make up its mind. And I think since this one's a little bit closer to the trunk, I'm going to leave it like that. But once I take this off, it's also going to need to lose a lot more than that. I think this piece here too. And then this, because I was thinking about removing that altogether. I was going to leave that on there. It was kind of growing into that piece, but now I left it. And I think I might see how it reacts to that. Has a little more of a leader to it. Of course, now it's losing the flap top look. But I think in the long run, this will always, this seems to pretty much grow all summer. And then it also even gets an extra little burst in early fall, if you will. So I think with a lot of growth, I think this thing can balance itself out. And maybe I can wind up with, I'll have this. The only thing I don't like about that, I do, I want to continue to give it some girth to the trunk. Let's see, what is that? That's that. Sorry, I got distracted there. But then it's got, this branch coming off, that branch coming off, and now that branch, which was where that leader was, and then it just kind of travels on up. And then I'll go ahead and let this become the new actual leader and just kind of grow a little while. This thing has a lot of, considering what this tree did look like in those pictures I showed you from 2019. It has done a lot of growing. In one of my earlier videos, I did mention I bought this to actually plant in the yard, and I just realized that it was so small. I've had my neighbors walk on my bougainvillea. Actually, I had my neighbor walk on my crepe myrtle. I've had utilities workers walk on my bougainvillea. I think that'll be a good front. See the movement now up to the leader.